I've got a couple of college complimentary plays coming your way in just a moment on the late afternoon card. I'm going to take a look at the game between Texas-Arlington and Appalachian State. And I guarantee 98% of you out there can't give me both of those schools' nicknames. Hell, I think probably 75% of you can't give me one of those teams' nicknames. But it's a damn good game on today's card, one of my favorites on the board. And also the ACC early afternoon tilt between North Carolina and Miami of Florida. Quick announcement before we go any further. So today marks the debut of one of the new handicappers here at the site. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, I gave the heave-ho to Brett Atkins and Bob Valentino, a long overdue heave-ho for both of them, especially in Valentino's case. The new guy, his name is Jack Brayman. A little background about Jack. So there are sites online that feature previews of games, and those sites aren't really there to give you great previews on games. Those sites are really there to get you to click on the buttons for offshore sports books. That's what they're really there. They're an aggregator of site traffic in order to get you to make the jump to sports books, because those sites get monetized by getting a kickback usually from the sports books. They make money on the click-throughs, and they generally make money on the back end. They call them half sheets. They get kickbacks from the sports books. So they don't give a damn whether you win or lose. That's the bottom line. Matter of fact, most sports gambling sites, if they're selling picks, generally they are making money on the front end and making money on the back end. So they have no vested interest whether you win or lose. The problem with a lot of these sites, and what really ticks me off as a guy who has been a longtime writer, a former reporter, a longtime editor, a managing editor in the journalism business, is that most of these things are just absolute dreck. Poorly written, so many statistical errors, it just ticks me off, because I'm a guy who does a hell of a lot of research. I think if you read my free picks, if you listen to the video reports, if you get my plays on the site, the premium picks, you know you are getting quality stuff. Now, does that necessarily mean I win more than most? Hey, bottom line, it's still always a 50-50 proposition. But I'm not just throwing out, hey, I like XYZ because of ABC. I like to quantify my selections. So Anthony Red knew Jack because Jack is based in Las Vegas, and Jack has actually been in the mortgage business. Well, or the real estate business, excuse me. Well, you know, the real estate business hasn't exactly been great in the last decade. It hit definitely the pits back in 2008. It's certainly come back up in the past 3-4 years, but to supplement his income, about 7-8 years ago, he started writing some of this syndicated copy. So A-Red told me about him, said that he had never sold his picks online. He'd only done this stuff. And, you know, and I'm giving A-Red the yada, yada, yada. I'm going, yeah, like I've heard this story before. Generally, these guys, you know, they stink. I've always had a saying that good editors make great writers, because generally when you read material online, it's been polished, it's been edited. So I said, hey, have the guy send me his unedited previews. And I got to tell you, they were pretty damn impressive. And more importantly, they were statistically accurate. And even better than that, they made valid points, and he supported his sides. That's what I look for. A guy who likes a side and he can make a valid argument. So I gave him a chance. First time his picks have ever been made available, and he makes his debut here today, so I wish him well. He, like everybody else, is on a trial basis, and we'll see how he does. Okay, let's get to your complimentary plays. I'll do these in reverse chronological order. The game between Texas-Arlington and App State goes at 3:30 Eastern Time. And in case you happen to be on Jeopardy, Texas-Arlington, they are the Mavericks, and App State, the Mountaineers. Listen, Texas-Arlington, a 5.5 points favored in this one on the road. App State has lost 3 in a row, and 6 of their last 7. They're returning home after a 0-3 road trip where they lost by 11 at Georgia State, 4 at Georgia Southern, 12 at Coastal Carolina. Yeah, and let me tell you, if you couldn't name the nicknames of those two teams, well, you certainly couldn't name the nicknames of all 3 of those victims either. Arlington won the first meeting 84-69 at home, laying 15 points back on January 2nd. But it was a close game. I think it was only a 4-point game at halftime in that one, but they blew it open in the second half. But the Mavericks struggled in that game shooting the ball. only shot 43.3% for the game, only 3 for 15 with their three-pointers. Now, the Mountaineers, their MO in that first game will certainly be their MO in this repeat. They were 9 for 31 for three-pointers, launched 31 triples in that first game. They don't have the size to compete with Texas-Arlington down low because Texas-Arlington has a guy who, if he stays healthy, last year he tore his ACL, but he's come back here and he's played strong here this season. If he stays healthy, he'll probably be a low first-round draft pick in next year's draft, and that's Kevin Hervey, their forward, who is averaging he's averaging about 20 points a game here. He had 21 points, 12 rebounds in the first meeting. Now, the Mavericks, I used them as a 15-time best bet earlier this week, and they absolutely destroyed UL Lafayette at home. Season high, 108 points in that contest as they rolled 108-71, shot 57% in the game, and Hervey returned to the starting lineup in that game, 21 points, 8 rebounds in 28 minutes. The previous 2 games, he had come off the bench and played exceptionally well because he was having some knee soreness associated with the knee surgery that he had midway through last season when he suffered that torn ACL. Now, last road trip for Arlington, they started it off with a loss at Texas State, a game in which they were up 8 points early in the second half, and then Texas State, the Bobcats, went on a 23-2 run and just blew the Mavericks out of the building. And then the next game, Hervey sat out because of the knee problems, and Troy State beat the hell out of him by 22 points. So you have, I think, a motivated Arlington team here to start a road trip with a win after losing their previous 2 road games. You have a cheap chalk price, say that 3 times quickly, with Texas-Arlington at 5.5, 6 points here against a team they've already beaten once, and you have an App State team that doesn't have the size to battle Texas-Arlington on the boards. Again, App State's going to come here and probably launch 25, 30 triples again. But I think Texas-Arlington can outscore them here, and I'm going to take the Mavericks, who are on a 14-2 roll, to take the win and the cover. Now, the other game, North Carolina, 6-point chalk at Miami of Florida. You know what Miami of Florida is going to do. They're going to take the air out of the ball. They're going to slow down the tempo of the game. And they've got to, because you have a North Carolina team that I think is number 4 in the nation in scoring, averaging almost 90 points a game. And what North Carolina showed in its most recent game was a new dimension against Virginia Tech. The ability to hit the three-pointer. 14 threes, a season-high 14 threes. The other night, 91-72 on Thursday in Chapel Hill over Virginia Tech. Now, that's 7 straight wins for the Tar Heels. They have scored at least 85 points in each one of those games. Miami, meanwhile, is, they haven't played well. That's the bottom line with the Hurricanes. They were lucky to escape with a 78-77 win over Boston College. I say lucky because, listen, guys, they were a 15.5-point favorite in that game. They had lost their previous 2 games. They had lost 4 of their previous 5 games. Miami's 22-1, their last 23 at home. Who beat them? Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago, put an end to that winning streak. I think Miami is going to have a tough time here because North Carolina can beat you so many different ways. They've got the height if they want to funnel the ball in down low with Hicks and Meeks and Bradley. Bradley, the freshman, who's been a great contributor off the bench this season. They've got the outside shooting, and they're getting confidence with that outside shooting. Now, did North Carolina suffer a loss in that Virginia Tech game? Yes, they did. One of their most valuable contributors off the bench, Theo Pinson, rolled his ankle again. He is once again going to be out. He had only come back and played in 6 games after missing 16, and he was a real valuable sub for Roy Williams' team. But I still like North Carolina at this reduced price. Again, even though Miami is definitely going to slow down or attempt to slow down the tempo in this game, but you got a Miami team that has been a miserable play, a money burner in Vegas. 2-12 against the spread in their last 14 games overall. 1-8 against the spread their last 9 at home. 5-18 against the spread their last 23 overall. Statistically speaking, the odds certainly favor North Carolina. And again, I think this Tar Heels team is a flexible team, one of the more versatile teams Roy Williams has had in recent years. And listen, I think Roy Williams is just an average to mediocre coach, okay? That's what I think of Roy Williams. I think he succeeds because of the talent he has. I do not think he is an outstanding coach by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm going to go with North Carolina in this one. Hey, listen, I know this report's late and it's bordering on the start of this game, but there's another interesting game today I wanted to talk to, and it starts at noon Eastern time, and that's West Virginia, 16-point favorite at home against Texas A&M. And I just want to talk about this game briefly because this is an interesting spot for West Virginia. West Virginia has been a giant killer this year, but you put West Virginia against mediocre opponents and the Mountaineers wilt, because West Virginia, coming off, of course, a win against Kansas, and they beat then number 1 Baylor. They beat then number 6 Virginia. They beat Kansas, Baylor, and Virginia by a combined 48 points. But they lose to unranked Temple. They lose to unranked Oklahoma. They lose to Kansas State. They lose to Texas Tech. They lose those 4 games by 11 points. Those 11 points and those 4 losses is the difference between Bob Huggins' team being undefeated or not. Can they, coming off the win against Kansas, get up in the SEC Big 12 Challenge and take care of business against a Texas A&M team that's 1-5 against the spread in its last 6-0? Texas A&M just snapped a 3-game SEC road skid with a win against Mississippi the other night, and they were led by one of their guards, Adam Gilder, who had a career-high 22 points, 10 points more than he averages on the season, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, but he played every single minute of that game. But before then, Texas A&M. They lost by 8 points at Mississippi State. They lost by 10 points at South Carolina. Remember, they opened up SEC play losing 100-58 at Kentucky. West Virginia, yeah, they beat Kansas, beat them bad, 85-69 on Tuesday. But before that, they had lost to Kansas State on the road. They were upset at home by Oklahoma, 89-87, as a 16.5-point home favorite. So I think it's a real interesting game today, whether or not West Virginia is going to come out here focused and take care of business against the team that they absolutely should beat, or are they going to be in one of those letdown situations because they're coming off the monster win against Kansas? And is this the classic letdown, big win, non-conference tilt, even though it's at home in front of a sellout crowd? Do they not get up for the Aggies? So West Virginia 23-9 ATS run at home, but did that help them as a 16.5-point chalk against Oklahoma the other night? I just wanted to throw it out there. I had to handicap the game, and I just thought it was a real interesting contest. Another kind of interesting game here tonight that I'm kind of interested in watching. I hate to use the word interested again, but that's really the case. It's the Nevada-New Mexico game, which I think was one of the most fascinating games played in college basketball this season, because the first time these two met in early January, New Mexico was cruising. New Mexico was up by 25 points, and this game was in the pit in Albuquerque. New Mexico was up by 25 points early in the second half, right? And then Nevada, which is a really good three-point shooting team, started launching threes. Every time down the floor, started launching threes. What the hell else were they going to do? They were down by 25 points in the second half, and they started whittling away the lead, right? Well, suddenly, then it's like a 14-point game with a minute 10 to go. Then it's a 9-point game with 49 seconds to go. And in that final minute, 6 more three-pointers for Nevada. They force overtime, and then they win the game outright, 105-104. So New Mexico certainly wants to avenge that loss. They're playing at in Reno today, and Nevada's like a 3.5 to 4-point favorite. I saw a lot of guys here a couple nights ago have a big play on Boise State at home against Nevada. And I had handicapped the game, and I thought, wow, this is not a conference or two teams, Boise, Nevada, even New Mexico, that I dip my toes in too often. But I handicapped the game out of curiosity. And I wasn't really impressed with Boise State. And it's a good thing I didn't use them, because Nevada just kicked their asses that night. Now, Nevada's coming back home. This is for first place in the Mountain West Conference. And I think there's two ways to look at this game. Nevada won the first game with a magnificent comeback. But what the hell are you doing falling down by 25 points in the first place, right? The two guards for New Mexico, Elijah Brown and Tim Williams, they had 26 points apiece in the first game. Now, true, the setting has changed, but again, another game I had handicapped today. I can't really tell you which way to go. I'd probably lean a little toward Nevada, but at 3.5, 4 points, that's a difficult spot. It's probably going to go down to the wire, but I do believe Nevada's a better team, having won 13 of its last 14 home games overall. But Another game I handicapped, and I find it fascinating. And I handicap these games because they help me further down the season. And I think that's one of the keys when doing your research. Even though you may not bet it, even though you may not even use it as a free play for an example, it always helps you because then down the road you may see the next game this team plays, and you've now got the research done, and you now have some idea what this team's been doing, and you can apply it further down the road. It doesn't help me to watch the damn game. It helps me to research the teams. That's why handicapping is so fascinating. That's why it's also time consuming as well. Good luck, everybody. I'll talk to you again tomorrow when we do this one more time. And then 8 days from now, there's this game in Houston we'll be talking about too. About Patriots playing somebody, Falcons, right? Good luck, everybody. I'll talk to you again.